We're beginning our series on the top 100 players entering the 2024 season today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Crabbs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to issue a big thank you, shout out, and welcome to our everydayers. Those of you who never miss a single episode, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply.
Joe, happy throwback reveal for the Jacksonville Jaguars day to you. On this Tuesday, rookies reporting across camps. Let's go.
Yeah, those OG Jaguars uniforms were awesome. Excited to see them come back, and
can't mess them up either.
Can't. They're nice, man. And the Jaguars have had quite the journey. I mean, quite the journey with the what are those gradient helmets? That's about as bad as you can do. I'm not forgetting that. I'm not off the hook for that.
With the arena football look.
Oh, so bad. Yeah.
With all the panels.
Yeah, like pointy edges everywhere.
And then the color rush. Mustard.
Yeah. Just as bad as you can do it. As bad as you can do it. Almost as bad as
now.
Did you hear this national anthem last night at the Home Run Derby?
Yes.
From Kyle Crabbs? What are we doing?
It's a 4-time Grammy nominee.
I tell you. Yikes.
What's worse, the national anthem last night or the Jaguars color rush?
Oh, God.
Mustards.
With the gradient helmet?
With the gradient helmet.
Probably that. I mean, you said the national anthem's 2 minutes long. You move on with your life. We had to watch these for years.
Right. I would agree with you.
Yeah.
Exposure. So we have a fun series. We know the lists over the last few days have made everybody very vocally angry, and we're going to do it again for the rest of the week. So Joe and I spent the last 2 months actually watching the film, even though we were accused of being not ball watchers, of all the teams over the course of the past 2 months and categorizing the players into different buckets. And now that we have all of the individual players across all 32 teams categorized, we said, hey, why don't we take all of the league's quality starters and cornerstones and rank them individually 1 through 100, with the objective being we'll combine our average rankings. We had a cutoff at about 140 to 150 players was kind of what we decided the consensus pool of available players to vote on was. Joe and I did our own individual ballots of 1 through 100. We had 109 total players who received votes as top 100 votes between us. We averaged our scores together, and now we have a 10-player honorable mention and a 100-player list that we're going to start counting down here today on the show.
Should be fun, man. And don't allow your feelings to get hurt that we don't like your favorite player as much as you
like
do.
all these players.
Yeah. So
we like. I think that's very important to note. These are the best of the best players across the league.
All really good, man. All really good. So, all right, well, just get the honorable mentions going here, and then
you want me to rip through them?
Just real quick, I'm excited that we can do this like on a yearly basis, and then check it out. Like, okay, who's rising? Man, the ideas that come off of this is going to be really fun.
Yep, because we've done a lot of this stuff up until this point, but I believe this is the first time we've done the top 100 players.
Yeah. All
right. So our 10 honorable mentions: Brian Burns, edge rusher, New York Giants; Saquon Barkley, running back, Philadelphia Eagles. I know there's some salt in that wound. My apologies. Quinn Miners, interior offensive lineman, Denver Broncos; Talanoa Hufanga, safety from the San Francisco 49ers, DeForest Buckner, defensive tackle from the Indianapolis Colts, Jonathan Taylor, running back from the Indianapolis Colts, Devonta Smith, wide receiver, Philadelphia Eagles, Quentin Nelson, guard, Indianapolis Colts, Landon Dickerson, guard, Philadelphia Eagles, and Rashawn Slater, offensive tackle, Los Angeles Chargers. Those are your honorable mentions. Also Rands, also receiving votes from either Joe or myself for top 100 players in the league.
A lot of these guys were tough. Tough to not include within the top 100 for obvious reasons. I mean, they're obviously knocking right on the door. Guys that I'm sure some fans are going to say deserve to be in there.
And they'll have a very good argument, right? Like the margins here are very, 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 very slim.
Yeah. I think what's interesting is the highest ranked player among the honorable mentions that didn't make the list. I had Rashawn Slater, 82.
Yeah.
That didn't get him on. And your highest ranked player that didn't make the top 100 was
Talanoa Hufanga, who I had 88. And he also did not make it. A tough year for Talanoa too, right? Like the injury.
Yeah.
There's a couple of guys like that had circumstances for this past season that maybe didn't allow them to be the best versions of themselves. Jonathan Taylor with some bumps and bruises again after a rough summer last year, and they finally figured out the contract dispute there. But yeah, there's, if you told me any one of those players was on your respective top 100 across the league, and there's about another 40 guys behind this,
right?
That if you told me was on the bottom half or bottom quarter of your respective top 100 list, I'd say, yeah, I totally see it. But that's not how the numbers spit it out for us.
Okay. Let's give a lot of time to the players who did make our top 100. So coming up here on the other side of it, players 100
early break
to 91.
I got
so be sure to stick with us. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Comparison is the thief of joy, and it's easy to envy other people's lives. It might look like they have it all together on their Instagram, but in reality, they probably don't. Therapy can help you focus on what you want instead of what others have, so you can start living your best life. It's helpful for learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. It empowers you to be the best version of yourself. It's not just for people who have experienced major trauma. Stop comparing and start focusing with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon.
Would you like me to read 100 through 91?
Yeah, go right.
Okay. So the first 10 players who made the cut for the Dudes 2024 NFL Top 100 for best players in the league entering into the 2024 season. Quarterback Kirk Cousins, Atlanta Falcons. Quarterback Tua Tagovailoa, Miami Dolphins. Quarterback Brock Purdy, San Francisco 49ers, 100 through 98. 97 is wide receiver Amari Cooper, Cleveland Browns. Number 96 is Joe Thuney. Offensive guard, Kansas City Chiefs. Number 95 is Bradley Chubb, defensive end, Miami Dolphins. Number 94 is Cooper Kupp, wide receiver, LA Rams. 93, TJ Hawkinson, tight end, Minnesota Vikings. 92, Derrick Brown, defensive tackle, Carolina Panthers. 91, Alex Highsmith, pass rusher, Pittsburgh Steelers.
It's interesting. We start off the top 100 with three quarterbacks, all like in that Shanahan system, right? That's kind of like where they've lived. And Kirk Cousins, kind of the OG of that mix. And then you get into the two younger guys in Tua and Brock Purdy. And, you know, Tua just led the league in passing, right? If I'm not mistaken, the year before he was the leader.
4,600 yards past year. Yeah.
Healthy amount of passing yards.
Brock, I feel like Brock would have done it, but he missed a little tiny. There was a concussion midseason, right? He missed a game. Numbers
are unbelievable for Brock Purdy. And was it 2 NFC championships? Well, he's played in 2 NFC championships, 1 Super Bowl in 2 seasons as a starting quarterback. And so you can debate all you want. The production's the production. And these guys are producing at a high level in that resume, just like year over year, just expanding, and excited to see what I think all 3 of them do this coming season.
Yeah. I think you have a really interesting blend beyond the quarterbacks, although this storyline does apply for the quarterbacks and this block of guys too. players on each escalator, right? Young guys that are trending up, and you consider Tua and Brock Purdy and Derrick Brown and Alex Highsmith are those kinds of players as well, where they're continuing their upward trajectory of what they are as players. And then you have players that maybe had reached the top of the mountain, but a little bit more late stage versions of themselves, like Kirk Cousins, like Cooper Kupp, like Amari Cooper, that the production, you still feel like each one of these guys, whether they are on the trending up or trending down arrows, still very much impact players for their respective teams. It's just the questions for each one of them. For Derrick Brown, for example, can you find the pass rush to really kick your production into the next stratosphere, like a player who had some similar strengths Christian Wilkins was able to do last year? And for Cooper Kupp, spoiler alert, he's not the highest ranked Rams wide receiver on this list. How much of what you were can you retain as the Rams offense goes through its respective evolution and Puka Nacua gets another year in the system? It's just very interesting as far as the trajectory of some of the guys here in the first 10.
Yeah, especially with Kyron Williams. And you kind of wonder, is Cooper Kupp the third option in the Rams offense? I think he kind of is, right?
And then they drafted Blake Corum too.
Yeah. Should be fascinating. Who's the player that you see here? I want to ask two questions, because we're not like this is the first 10 in.
Yep.
Who do you think is the one guy that's most likely to fall out after the season? And who's the guy that you think can take the biggest jump with how they perform this season?
Most likely to fall out.
I kind of feel like it might be Cooper Kupp. If he's hurt, he's banged up. I know he's had some stuff like.
I think he's the one who is. Him and Kirk are the two that are like most near the last stage versions of themselves, right?
Well, and I think when did Chubb have his injury? Was pretty late, right?
Bradley Chubb?
Yeah.
Was week 17, yeah.
That's tough. To know what he's going to be this year. So like I think he had the best season of his career
he did.
Like pretty plainly this past season. The impact was really, really high. But if he's not himself, or it takes him a little bit of time, right?
I would expect he's going to be on a list, whether that's the PUP or IR with the new rules, as far as you don't have to play the musical chairs with a guy that gets cut and sits in the parking lot and comes in at 401 and re-signs with the team.
Yeah.
He's the one I would expect he's on some kind of list to start the season. It's just 4 weeks, 6 weeks. Does it go longer than that? To be determined. So I think that's another good call out too, as far as just once you're back, are you really back? Right. And I think he's young enough, because he's still in his 20s. It's not like he's a 35-year-old pass rusher trying to get back on it.
I heard about that. Yeah. They say it takes 2 years, Kyle Crabbs.
Von Miller did not make the dude's top 100 this year. I'd say that. Did you have another question, or did you? I guess who makes the biggest leap?
Yeah. The player that I think is fascinating through that lens is Alex Highsmith, who's been, I mean, what a last couple of seasons he's had in Pittsburgh. Yeah. I just kind of wonder, is for players like Alex Highsmith, is it always going to be, well, you play on the same defensive line as TJ Watt and Cameron Hayward, and so we're not sure how good you are absent of those players? I don't know, man. I think he's a baller. And so I don't know what the path is for him, because I mean, the production is elite. But he's a guy that I still think is young and ascending. Like, I mean, there's other players as well, but he's the one that kind of pops for me.
It's pretty hard to believe he's not even 27 years old yet. He turns 27 next week, 3 weeks, about 3 weeks, first week of August. So he's playing the league 4 years and has really kind of rounded into his own at the right time, as far as how he's developed as a player, and now is in what is going to be the physical prime of his career, as he's kind of figured out the pass rush stuff. So that's an exciting player. I would also probably invoke Brock Purdy in this, because there's as good as they've been offensively, I think there's a lot of little things that Brock can add more polish to his game with, that if he does, I think there's enough extending the play, and you saw that in the postseason run. He's obviously got a great supporting cast around him. The physical strengths and weaknesses aren't really going to change as a player, but I think there's a lot of room in the margins for like the routine stuff at quarterback for him to continue to put polish on himself as a player. And if he does that, I think he is a player that can ascend this list even more.
It's kind of a scary thought, right?
Yeah.
Like, because of what we know about the system and how it's quarterback friendly, and execution of it is where I think, I mean, just kind of what you're pointing at. Some of the off script stuff from Brock Purdy is like really, really cool and exciting, but like if he becomes even more consistent within the structure of the offense, the numbers are just going to go up.
I mean, last year was his first year as the incumbent starter going into the year, right? Like, and we were kind of unsure with the elbow injury he had in the playoffs the previous season.
Yeah. Loaded, right? Like all the talent you can ask for at receiver. They just got an added Ricky Parasol, first round receiver to go with Ayuk and Samuel and Kittle. I mean, Kittle's unbelievable. He's on the list at some point. We'll get to him. McCaffrey, that guy's pretty good. Yeah, I think it's a good call out there for Mr. Brock Purdy. On the other side of it, we're going to go 90 to 81. Is that what we're thinking there, Kyle Crabbs?
We'll go 90 to 81, and unless you want to read them now and take a few minutes. You tell me.
Let's leave it hanging. You'll hear the names, you'll hear the analysis on the other side of it, so be sure to stick with us. There's nothing quite like being at the ballpark taking in a Major League Baseball game during the summer. Gametime is the authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier, and prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. They specialize in last-minute ticket deals. They give you all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Simply put, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets. And look, Gametime is the fast and easy way to get tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. So snag the tickets without the stress. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
Our next 10 players on this list. Number 90, Washington Commanders wide receiver Terry McLaurin. Number 89, LA Rams wide receiver Puka Nacua. Number 88, Philadelphia Eagles offensive tackle Jordan Mailata. Number 87, Houston Texans quarterback CJ Stroud. Joe, come on back to me. Number 86, Tampa Bay Buccaneers linebacker Lavonte David. Number 85, Cleveland Browns running back Nick Chubb. Welcome back, Joe. Number 84, Philadelphia Eagles quarterback Jalen Hurts. Number 83, Green Bay Packers now safety Xavier McKinney. Number 82, Detroit Lions quarterback Jared Goff. And number 81, Cleveland Browns cornerback Denzel Ward.
I think what really pops here are a couple of very exciting young players. And of course, Puka Nacua, the wide receiver from the Rams, CJ Stroud, the quarterback from the Texans. Both guys coming off unbelievable rookie seasons. And if they double down on that,
be a lot higher this time,
brother.
Yeah.
I mean, they could jump
40 spots.
Yeah. Oh, every bit of it, right?
Plus.
Yeah, every
spots plus.
Every bit of it. So I think that's important for me to kind of call out. And it's been pretty consistent for me throughout all of the stuff we've done this summer, is that I definitely value the sample size a little bit. And I mean, it's probably inevitable. A lot of these players are going to
normalize.
Some of them will normalize. Some of them will be even better, but
yeah,
I still want to see it a little bit before I start, anointing guys as the elites of the elites.
Which is fair. This group also has some players with some questions about where they're at in their trajectories. Lavonte David still playing at a very high level. Nick Chubb coming off the injury. Did you see the video of him squatting?
Yeah, I did. And then did you see Le'Veon Bell coming in? He's like, well, if you see the depth of the squad, he just leans a little bit to the right, which is a deficiency. And they tell athletes.
That's because he's rehabbing, getting his knee blown to smithereens. I'd hope in July there'd be some kind of a compensation in his range of motion in both his knees as he
There's a-
squats 500 freaking pounds.
Right. Don't be that guy. Don't be
Yeah.
that guy.
Number one rule to a happy life is never post an exercise video on the internet. Right.
Oh man. Oh wow.
Because the weightlifting snobs are going to pick apart your technique like a golf swing. Right.
Yeah.
Just avoid that altogether and you'll be a much happier person. I made the mistake one time, like 10 years ago, putting a video of me doing a squat. And I got the same, your depth, your hips didn't break parallel with your knees. And I know. So I said that I won't do that again.
People are thieves of joy. That's what they are.
Let's bring this back. Another couple of quarterbacks on this list in this stretch. And it's important to note the quarterbacks are not necessarily mirroring the order of the quarterback list that we did last week. And the reason why is because depending on it's based off points. When Joe and I sat down, we did the quarterback list. It was a consensus, rank them 1 through 32. For this, it's the separation as far as the points and how we view like the tiers of the quarterbacks opens the window for the average of the quarterbacks to come out in a different order than necessarily what we did when we just ranked specifically the quarterbacks 1 through 32. So I make that note because we have CJ Stroud, Jalen Hurts, and Jared Goff on this block. You mentioned CJ Stroud, but Jalen Hurts coming off of a challenging season last year, and Jared Goff coming off of a season where I think you saw probably the best version of Jared Goff. Mm-hmm. So that's a storyline in the hierarchy of NFC quarterbacks. And I know that just got put into the microscope with Jeremy Fowler and his quarterback executive and NFL league poll that he did that came out yesterday. Jalen Hurts, I think, was 13th amongst NFL quarterbacks. And what's his ceiling? His ceiling is much higher than that of Jared Goff. Jared Goff's coming off of a really hot hand that he played last year. So kind of that pecking order for two NFC contenders is a really interesting subplot for me here in this block of names.
How excited are you if you're a Packers fan and you get Xavier McKinney? I just feel like the versatility and what he can bring to that defense and shoring up the middle of the field and doing a lot of different things. You and I both had him, obviously. I mean, he's pick 80, number 83 on the list. So he's represented well on both of our ballots.
75 for you and 87 for me.
Yeah, man, I think he's a good football player. I loved him at Alabama, and he put it all together this past season for the Giants, and now he's part of this Packers team. I feel like the Giants could probably use him based on the way that safety tandem looks right now, but kind of an underrated name, I think, maybe across the league.
You are not kidding. I literally just went over here to sit here and pull up the Giants cap situation to ask myself how did we justify not paying Xavier McKinney? Right, Saquon Barkley is one thing because we're paying Daniel Jones $40 million, and we don't want to pay him $40 million to turn around and hand the ball off to a $12 million a year running back or whatever the quote was from Hard Knocks, right? I see your smirk there. But Xavier McKinney, and I understand it was like a upper echelon safety contract that was given out, right? It was like right in line with what Jesse Bates got. Was below what Antoine Winfield Jr. got, but that happened afterwards. So it was kind of like a needle moving contract as far as the safety market. But look at this Giants team. Like, this is a top 3 player on your roster. Is that fair to say?
Dexter Lawrence is their best player.
Yes.
But Andrew Thomas and Xavier McKinney?
Probably. So you drafted him. He's in the prime of his career.
Well, Joe Shane didn't draft him, Kyle Crabbs.
Well, he was a homegrown talent.
Right.
I digress. I'll get off the soapbox now.
Well, you could tell through watching Hard Knocks that the emphasis that the Giants had was we want to add a body next to Dexter Lawrence, right? That was their big ticket was, is it going to be Christian Wilkins? Are we going to trade for Brian Burns? Like, they were all in on that. And there's even some players that they didn't really think was the right guy to put next to him. They want another guy for the D-line. That's what they wanted. Maybe they could have accomplished everything, but we'll see. We'll see how it all goes. Okay, so that's what, 90 to 81?
That's 90 to 81.
And we're going to get to 76 today, right?
Yeah. So we got a block of 5 more names to get to. Number 80 is Kansas City Chiefs offensive guard Trey Smith. Number 79 is New York Giants offensive tackle Andrew Thomas. Number 78, wide receiver Nico Collins from the Houston Texans. A big breakout year this past year. Number 77, Tyler Smith, offensive lineman from the Dallas Cowboys. And number 76, running back Bijan Robinson from the Atlanta Falcons.
Got some hog mollies in here, man. You got some people movers, and Tyler Smith and Trey Smith represented. Yeah, those guys are dudes. One's a first-round pick, one's a later-round pick. Obviously, the medicals with Trey led to that, but I think that's kind of what initially pops is you got some really dynamic people that can create that displacement in the run game that I think matters a ton for those offenses.
How about Nico Collins and the year that he had this past year? 1,300 yards, over 16 yards per catch. A guy that's a traditional X who put it together. 6'4", 215. The question coming out of Michigan was never the physical profile for him, and he did it in an offense that had a lot of quality options. I think he's the best option, no doubt. But dude, he had 1,300 yards and he barely broke 100 targets on the season.
Yeah, very efficient and a lot of yards per target.
That's outstanding as far as the obviously yards per catch over 16, but the efficiency of that and being able to stay balanced with that, I think that's where you find your optimism amid them bringing in Stephon Diggs is, hey, we are going to sit here and continue to spread the ball around, but Nico Collins, you have no reason to think can't have a replicatable season what he had last year, because it wasn't like he was overly reliant on targets to get it.
I think he's going to. And I think that contract we're going to look back on it and feel like it's one of the real steals coming in. It's 3 years, $72 million.
Yeah.
What is that? 24.25 APY.
It's already a steal.
Oh, dude. Yeah. I mean, I'm not sitting here saying that guys Jefferson and Brown and St. Brown and Waddle, like all those guys deserve the money that they got.
Are you going to do the thing? I'd rather pay Nico Collins 24 than pay Justin Jefferson 35.
I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that, but I'm saying, I mean, all these receivers that are going to get deals are going to top them. Like Higgins, I'd rather pay whatever Houston is paying Nico Collins. I'd rather have that than whatever deal T. Higgins ultimately gets.
Yeah, because it came out T's not getting an extension done, so he's going to play this year on the franchise tag, and then he's going to go into free agency presumably next year, because I don't think the Bengals will tag him twice.
No,
with the cap going up probably another $15 to $20 million for a team to be like, hey, T, the Patriots to overpay to get a guy and pay him 28. Right, even if it's a smaller percentage of the cap, Nico's a more attractive player.
Well, and I think that's the benefit of, like, maybe he hasn't proven everything, right? Contract, you're not paying them for what they've done. You're paying for what they're going to do.
Right.
And so, like, I think the best general managers that get the best value out of extensions are the ones that identify a guy, they do it early, and they offer it to them before they go absolutely crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for Nick Caserio with the Texans, it's a heck of a job. Well, we'll see. It's got to play out. But right now it feels like a heck of a job getting value out of him with the early extension.
That'd be some really good content. Kind of look at the teams that historically do that, or looking at contracts that have done well with that. Just because I know my team. I don't know how you feel about your team with contract extensions. I know the Ed Oliver one was a really good one. It was very graceful for you already. The Josh Allen one was very graceful.
Yeah.
Miami's had some, but Miami with Jalen Waddle cost themselves a little bit of money trying to get a feel for what the market was going to look like. And they let Amon-Ra St. Brown and they let Devontae Smith happen. And then they let A.J. Brown happen. And I feel like there was another one that happened too. But there's been so many wide receiver contracts, I don't have it off the top of my head. And then, like, sitting here with the quarterback thing with Tua Tagovailoa, and all you've heard is their intent to pay him. and it hasn't happened. And then the Jared Goff deal happens, and they go back to square one and they start working on it. And then the Trevor Lawrence deal happens, right? So that you talking about that would be a really fun thing to kind of look at from a timeline perspective for some of these teams. It'd be fun.
One time tying that back, I think you can look at, like, well, you mentioned Christian Wilkins. You can look at Tremaine Edmonds for the Bills. There's guys that, like, felt like the conversations happened for a while. They didn't get done. They wind up playing on that 5th-year option. The next thing you know, it never makes sense.
Now you're in a stratosphere of paying them that you're never going to accommodate and pay.
If you know they're your guy, get the deal done. Get it. It will never be cheaper than it is in that moment. Because if they're the guy you think they are, and that sample size expands, it goes up.
Couple guys that will be starting off tomorrow's show with that is applicable to or was applicable to. So there's a nice tease for you. We did players 100 through 76 here today on the show. Our top 100 players according to the consensus ballot of both Joe and I. It's the average scores out of the top 150 players that we identified to vote on. So we'll come back tomorrow for 75 through 51. We'll reveal the final list through the end of this week. So you come on back, see us, hit subscribe. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Make it a great rest of your day. We are out of here.